Hi again, and in this section, in this video, we will be talking about the functionality, the physics of of both Kazakh types of bow, the lesser Kazakh horsebow and the large Kazakh horsebow. And for the sake of clarity, I compare them with the work of the English longbow, which is a very beautiful, very elegant self bow. It's very simple in its design, and that's why we love it so much. Its beauty is in its simplicity, while all horse bows are very complex, and at that time they were basically rocket science design. And it's really interesting to compare them because they were contemporary, but they were centuries of evolution and technological development between them. The English longbow was still used in Britain, while the Turks, the Ottomans, the Seljukis, they were using already for a few centuries or millennia. They already switched to horsebow, and English longbow practically didn't change from the Bronze Age design. And this kind of uh, devotion to tradition is amazing, very respectful. Anyways, in terms of the physics, I think one of the uh, added value from my book, if nothing else, is how I explain the work of all three types of bow when I compare them to human body in a diagram, kind of like looking from a human torso from the top, if the camera was positioned right on top of head of a person looking downwards. And we can see that English longbow is kind of like a person with arms fully stretched and straight and holding a rope, piece of rope that kind of represents string, bowstring. And we can kind of imagine the effort this person would have to do to kind of shoot an arrow if an arrow was passing on that person's neck, for example, and a second person would be pulling that string. So the person with representing English longbow with his or her arms stretched would have to kind of overcome that pulling effort and try to strengthen arms and release the arrow. But in order to do so efficiently, the arms must be very, very strong in this case because they're stretched fully, and it confirms the evidence because the stronger English longbows, those that shoot that pull 120, 180 pounds, they are of enormous thickness, as also depicted in European miniature paintings. They were very thick in order to produce that kind of pull effort. Because when it's a self bow, it's just a very well crafted piece of wood that keeps the structure of the layers of the wood and etc. Or sometimes they make them laminated in our days using different kind of density wood for that to create this effect. But essentially, in order to add pounds to the pull, to the draw weight, you have to make limbs thicker, and that's the only way. And the thicker it gets, the heavier it gets. That's why even the most powerful English longbows don't produce the same arrow velocity as horsebows of the same poundage or even lesser. It's a well-known fact, obviously. And so to compare, if we look from the same perspective, looking from up downwards at a person who now is representing a Manchu type horsebow or large Kazakh horsebow, we would ask that person to bend his arms in his elbows, and we can see immediately the leverage that he gets and how much more convenient it becomes to pull the string and to produce the same kind of pull, the same kind of weight, but it's so much easier, and it means that with the same amount of effort applied, the person would produce much more pull and velocity. And that explains why even the simplest horsebow designs, recurved horsebow designs, produce more pull, more draw weight than any kind of longbow, self bow longbow. Now, if we compare that to lesser Kazakh horsebow, which is exactly similar to Turkish horsebow and also Korean horsebow, we can see that obviously it's kind of like if that person would also bend his wrists, so it's like a double bend, elbow and wrist, and that adds another leverage. So if a Manchu type bow has two leverages, then the Crimean Tatar type of bow, or Turkish or Korean, they have four leverages now, and that makes it even more powerful, and that translates into even more velocity and draw weight. So that's why obviously Turkish bows, Korean bows, Crimean, Tatar, or lesser Kazakh horsebow, as I refer to it, they're the swiftest ones. In that respect, they kind of remind us of the Saka or Scythian type of bow. It was of different design, but it was just as snappy, just as fast, just as high velocity and small bow as these. Now the large Kazakh horsebow, or the so-called Manchu type bow, uses different approach. It shoots larger, heavier arrows, almost like small javelins with fletching, and it was designed for different purposes. What I read about it, everybody's agree that it was produced to shoot large game or enemies from close distance, and at that point the armor was kind of going out of fashion, so it was used to shoot at unarmored enemy. And it appears that the Manchu were the ones who introduced this type of bow, and it was very much instrumental at defeating the Chinese dynasty, the previous Chinese dynasty, the Ming dynasty, if I'm correct. And then apparently it was so popular that it got spread all over the area. The neighbors adopted it, the Kazakhs adopted it, the Central Asians adopted it, the Mongols adopted it, and in modern day, all Mongols use it as their national brand of bow. And not a lot of people know that there was also the old Mongol bow, but we already covered that in the previous section. Anyway, so that's kind of the my take on explaining, helping to understand the physics of these three types of bow, and why certain designs are better than others, more efficient, more draw weight producing, and their advantages and their disadvantages. The lesser Kazakh bow is better for flight archery, for example, or shooting at longer distances with smaller, lighter arrows. But the Manchu type arrow type bow, the large Kazakh horsebow, obviously has an advantage of shooting much heavier arrows with much more kinetic power, and obviously there is a military advantage coming from both types. And that's all I wanted to say in this section, and we will be moving on to the next one in the next video. Thank you.